Okay, so in this demonstration, I'm going to be installing the Hansgrohe eye box. Now this is a shower faucet that has many multiple different types of trim kits that you can install on this. But this particular shower, I'm going to be installing a handheld unit and a regular shower head. So this will be able to do the mixing along with having a separate diverter valve for each section, going from handheld to shower head, and it also will do both at the same time. But I really highly recommend these valves. These are really great. I'll show you on the installation how great they are to waterproof around. All the components are really well made. There's integral shut-offs inside of this box, so if there was ever an issue, you can shut off the fixture at the shower area. So let's go ahead and get this started, and I'll just show you how simple this really is. Okay, so first off, obviously you want to make sure that things are centered. So, and this makes it really nice because they got a little label on the box, and it basically says minimum, maximum. So as long as your tile work, your finished wall, ends up in the middle of this label, you'll be in good shape. So there's a lot of variance there, and it really makes it simple to line this up. So you always have to calculate your thickness of your wallboard with your tile. So most of the time, it all depends on the tile that you're actually installing and what size it is, because the thin set layer varies. But you're going to have 1/2 inch backer board. Typically most tiles about 3/8 of an inch thick, and then you'll have about 1/8 of an inch that you want to allow for thin set. Now if you went with bigger large format tile, 12 by 24s or bigger, you might want to just add 1/4 inch for that thickness, because a lot of times you're putting more thin set on, and so that thickness grows. But with this kind of variance, as long as you're right in the middle, it really doesn't matter. So just account for 1 inch, 1 1/8 at most or something like that, and you'll be fine. But if you shoot for the middle, you'll be in good shape. So this is new construction, but unfortunately, you know, we didn't pay attention to framing, or somebody didn't pay attention to framing, so we need to cut this out because we want to have our valve centered. So we want to be 18 inches centered, so I'm going to cut this out. Typically, my shower valves, I recommend just taking it 48 inches off the floor. So it'd be something like around that. And that's all personal preference too. So, you know, you can adjust as to wherever you want. Now I am going to be putting some grab bars in here, so I'm going to pay attention to make sure that I have enough room in there. I'm going to have a grab bar here and then one on the back side. But, you know, for the purposes of the valve, you know, you just want to pay attention to where you might want to do that. So I'm going to have a 30, you know, basically those are going to be 36 inches off the floor. So I have plenty of space here. So just always pay attention to, you know, your layout and additional features that you want to do. But we're going to go ahead and cut this out. Okay, so we're going to be 18 is right about there. So we'll get another stud right next to this so that we can frame this properly. So 44 1/8. Okay, so checking the depth, looks like we have 1 inch to the front of this. So if we put about 1 inch in the back of this, that'll bring it out. So if I just put 1 inch block back here, then I'll be able to be centered by the time I have this. Because right now, out to the edge of this is 1 inch. So to be in the middle, I just have to bring this out 1 inch. Yep. Okay, so we're just going to use some liquid nail in the back of this drywall here, because we can't put screws into that. And then that'll give us our 1 inch that we need for the depth. Just get some screws in here at an angle. So the way these are so simple. So all I have is these male adapters to 1/2 inch pecs, and we're just going to thread them into the actual unit. So very easy installation. So you want to use your Teflon tape, go counterclockwise with the rotation, so that when you thread this in, it doesn't unthread the Teflon tape. So I usually go about 4 to 5 revolutions of this. So we'll tape each one. You want to try to keep that Teflon tape flat too. A really good idea is to put some pipe sealant. This is the T2 pipe sealant. You want to put a little bit on each fitting, and this will really ensure that there's not going to be any leaks coming out of this. Now obviously if you just had a shower head, you can just cap one of these off. This is the same kind of rough end valve that you would be doing for their tubs. So rather than having just another shower port coming out, you can have your tub spout coming out. One thing great about PEX is that once you connect this, and if you did see a leak, you could just keep tightening it until it gets tight. So that's really kind of a nice thing about using PEX. Now there is an indicator on the back here that says top. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that, but make sure your indicator is going up. And so we're going to get this addressed. So hot on the left, cold on the right. The top is going to go to the shower port, and then the left one, or the bottom, is going to go to my shower port. Okay, so we're going to bring this into our wall cavity. I'm just going to use a spade pit to drill through my studs here. So I really like to use these basically pro crimps around here. So for the shower head, typically always go about 82 inches. So the older standard used to be 78 inches. So now I really do recommend bringing that up another 4 inches to about 78. So, and all we're going to do on that is just put a little port. So we're going to be 18. Let's put a block here. Okay, so basically this port we're going to be putting in the wall. So you just want to make sure that's behind the actual framing. So about an inch, inch and a half behind. So let's go ahead and just put a 2x4 here. As far as the port for your side, it's going to be about 60 inches off of the floor. And the main reason for that is just so when you have your port here, your hose hangs down and it looks nice. But that's, again, really personal preference. If you have a bench, if you have some other kind of feature, you know, you can really put this port really anywhere that you want within the area. So, but I'm going to just go ahead, actually I'm going to cut out the stud a little bit because I'd prefer it to be right on this stud. But the one thing you do want to pay attention to when you put this port is how far back into the wall cavity you actually install it. So I would recommend, if you're going about an inch behind this rough-in framing, so that you could use about a 2.5 or a 2-inch brass nipple to connect that to it. So let's go ahead and cut this out so that we can put this back where we need it. Okay, so then what I'd like to put on are these little adapters, ports for testing. So this one just has a hose adapter so I can get water in the shower, and then this is just a male adapter with a piece of copper on it. But this allows me, with the shark bite, I can just take this off. I can cut the hole for my tile and everything and then still be able to get water in the actual bathroom. So it's kind of nice to have that. So I'm just going to put a little pipe sealant on this as well. And then this port is just a stub out with a male adapter as well. So we'll put this on the shower port. Okay, so you want to test, make sure you have water. Make sure that you don't have any leaks anywhere. So it's pretty simple when it comes to PEX. Just make sure that these stops are straight with the valve that turns it on. Yep, so we got water. Everything looks good. So I always just recommend keeping this on the whole process before, during the waterproofing, just keep this on so that if there is any leaks or anything like that, you're going to be able to tell. Okay, so that gives us our little indentation on our back. Okay, so this locking ring here, what this is designed for is to be even with the studs. So all this allows you to do is just to have the board have a little bit of support behind here. So you can adjust this to meet up with your outside wall. So that's what this thing's for. And so what we're gonna do is just use some Cardi Fix, and we're just gonna put this on this support flange on the actual valve here. And this is just gonna help give some support to that board around here. Waterproofing around this guy. So the way Schluter would want you to do this is just apply a big bead of sealant on the actual housing. Now, a lot of people think that Cardi Fix is a waterproof sealant, and it's not. It's made to adhere Cardi membrane to the system. So in itself, it's not deemed to be waterproof. So you can't just seal this and walk away. You need to use the fabric, meaning, affixing the fabric to the housing. So just put a little bit of that around there. Go ahead and adhere thin set all around here. Okay, so we're just going to take a piece of the Cardi membrane. And then we'll get our pipe seals. So let's take out our hand port here. So this was just our temporary water supply here. So let's just check this out to see what this looks like. This is the 2.5-inch nipple. So really what you want typically, now it depends on the port that you're installing, but typically if you have 3/8 of an inch sticking outside of your towel work, that usually works. But I could tell right now that's gonna, by the time I thread this all the way in, this is almost gonna be flush with my wall. So the 2.5-inch is not going to work in this instance. So let's go with the 3-inch. So yeah, we're gonna have basically, by the time I'm done, I'll have all those threads hanging out of there. So the Hansgrohe port is very flexible, and I'll show you how to install that. We're gonna put Teflon tape on this and get this prepared first. Okay, so first thing you want to do is prep this with the Teflon tape. So keep it flat and go clockwise with it. So, and go by 4 to 5 revolutions, because the idea is that when you thread this in, you want this to be tightened with it. You don't want this unthreading. So if you went counterclockwise, it would end up unraveling that Teflon tape. So always go clockwise with your rotation, or just make sure that it threads into the system. And then on top of that, I like using some pipe thread sealant this really helps to ensure a good seal. So just put a little bit of that. You don't need a whole lot of that on there. And then we'll stick this in. And don't worry about tightening this. You'll tighten this with the actual shower arm on that. But here's the Hansgrohe port. So basically it comes in the 3 systems. There's a rubber gasket, the sleeve, and then the port. So what makes this kind of nice is that I can put that aside and then just rotate this on and put everything else together. The gasket was kind of tough to get on there. I'll put that on first. Sticks on there, so that's all there is to it. So you want to make sure, get your rubber gasket on here, and then there really is no need for Teflon tape when you have the rubber gasket on these guys. Just hand tighten that. Now we'll be able to flush out our lines when we're ready. Okay, so go ahead and take our shower head port out. Okay, shower arm, same deal. Clockwise with your rotation, 4 to 5 revolutions. And then get a little bit of sealant on here. So, and then you can just take a screwdriver and tighten it to rest. That's all you need. So go to hand tighten and then just bring it down to where you need it. Okay, so now that's ready to flush out as well. So we'll address our valve next. Okay, so what you want to do is cut this sleeve off even with the tile. Okay, so you want to just take this port out of here. Okay, so this is your port. So you just want to make sure it says hot on the left, so on the left-hand side. So your bigger valve's at the bottom, and this is your diverter valve. So you want to just set this guy in place. Okay, so turn these valves straight in line with the valve. So right now they're straight up. You just turn them to so that they're horizontal, and then it'll be full pressure there. Okay, so this is the cover for basically how the escutcheon plate molds on here. And they have little plastic screws that thread into this. Now, if your valve was really far out, you might have to cut these in order for them to not bottom out. If it bottoms out, then you're gonna have to cut part of them. Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to cut part of them. Okay, so we're just going to cut a little bit of this off in order for this to not bottom out. Okay, so this escutcheon plate, you just want to make sure that this sits on the right hand side and that all the numbers are facing up straight. So basically this is on the right hand side, and then all the numbers and letters are all straight here. And then you can slide on your escutcheon plate. Okay, so before you put the handle on, you need to set this valve at 104 degrees because what this has is a little safety button. So when you stick this on here and you press this button, it allows it to get a lot hotter. So basically you turn it on and it only gets up to 100 degrees, and then you press this button and then you have control of it getting a lot hotter. So it's kind of a safety feature in a sense. It just prevents you from scalding yourself right off the bat. But what you want to do is turn this on and get a temperature reading of 104 degrees. That's about 103.5. So then you shut this off and you put this valve on straight up and down, because then when you turn this on, it only goes to 104 degrees. And then you press the button and it'll get the rest of the way hot. Okay, so this is probably the simplest, nicest, easiest handheld unit you can install because they already have it really simple. I already have the things on here. You just want to make sure that you're going to have your handheld out properly, and then we'll just make sure that this stays level. The shower head, as long as you have that rubber gasket in there, you shouldn't need any Teflon tape for this, but it's always good to test it and make sure that you don't. Using a crescent wrench will definitely prevent you from scratching things. Hansgrohe shower faucet and a goose.
Don't leave that.
There you go. What are you doing in there?
Not hot.
What do you think? Is this up to your specs?
Yeah, give him a minute because he might start doing this with his head. Do what with it? He goes like this with his head.